Dear friends, welcome at this World Goodwill meditation webinar. Today we are the 30th of October 2024 and my name is Mintje van der Velde and I'm speaking to you from Geneva. The title of this webinar is Considerations on Cosmic Fire, a contemplation on the interface between science and religion. Of all of the 24 books by Alice Bailey, the book A Treatise on Cosmic Fire is probably not the one you would start with. We are happy to have a special guest today, Bette Stockbauer, who is a long-time student of the Ageless Wisdom, with a special interest in science and religion, and she has written a book with the same title. Bette will speak to you from Texas in the USA. This short introduction on World Goodwill and this webinar will be followed by a World Goodwill meditation. Thereafter, Bette will present some topics from her book, and then we will have time for discussion. For the discussion, you can put your questions in the chat, or at the discussion time you can raise your hand and we will give you the floor. I will try to keep my introduction short so that we will have enough time for the meditation and the presentation of Bette's book. You may know that on the 2nd of November World Goodwill is organizing its yearly World Goodwill seminar. This year on the theme The Will to Good, Rethinking International Relationships. We thought it would be good to have a completely different topic today for this webinar, even though the common factor is of course goodwill. The Goodwill Meditation Group is a worldwide group of people who link up each Wednesday at noon to meditate on goodwill. The group aims to stimulate and strengthen the goodwill that is expressed by humanity as a whole. And this webinar meets the last Wednesday of each month and provides a platform for individuals to come together to use the Goodwill meditation and to discuss our common work. It is said that goodwill is in essence the name we give to the potent energy of divine will as it is expressed through human relationship. This powerful energy overcomes all separating forces and has the potential to transform all aspects of our societies and the planet itself. To begin, let us quiet our minds and link with the group in sounding the mantra of the new group of world servers. May the power of the One Life pour through the group of all true servers. May the love of the One Soul characterize the lives of all who seek to aid the Great Ones. May we fulfill our part in the one work through self-forgetfulness, harmlessness, and right speech. Let us remember that scientists are first of all human beings, a bit like you and me, each with his or her own struggle in their private life, but most of them driven by a desire to serve humanity through the research and progress of science. However, science is not something standing on its own, without links to society, politics, religion, etc. In many cases, science goes beyond the political divides. An example thereof is the International Space Station, where for decades long Russians and Americans and other nationalities work together even to the day of today. Here in Geneva, we are fortunate to have CERN, one of the largest international cooperations worldwide. When I was myself a student of theoretical physics in the 70s, 80s of the last century, that's to say in the midst of the Cold War and the Iron Curtain, I have been working 7 months in Moscow, and several Russian scientists visited Amsterdam at the same time. For science, the Iron Curtain was relatively transparent. The role of science in our daily life is mostly seen through the spin-off of technology. Much of the modern technology has its roots in science. And actually, technology is developing at a much higher pace than science itself. Each year, our computers, our smartphones, for example, become faster, stronger and better. The same is true for cars, including electric cars, satellites, 3D printers, etc., etc. Yet, these are all based on science of about a century ago, and that science itself has not undergone a fundamental revolution since the beginning of the last century, where both quantum physics and relativity theory were developed. For more than a century, the dominant thought of science is that there is no need for God or a divinity. This is so because the equations of physics and cosmology do not need a reference to such an entity. Having said that, it is well known that many prominent scientists of the last century were deeply religious or spiritual people, even though they would never discuss this in the laboratories where they were working. Think of Schrödinger, Pauli, Planck, Heisenberg and Oppenheimer, for example. Time does not allow me to develop this further, but let me just remind you that Wolfgang Pauli was a very intuitive scientist whose dreams constituted the basis for much of the work of Carl Jung. The fact that Pauli sought counsel by Jung indicates that his private life was far from easy. At the end of his career, Pauli tried to develop a framework combining the laws of physics with those of the spirit, an endeavor which unfortunately never was accepted by the scientific community of his time. Even today, many scientists have a different conviction in their private life than mainstream science proclaims. There is also a growing community of scientists openly challenging the mainstream view. One example thereof is the Scientific Medical Network, which you can find at scientificandmedical.net. This group exists for over 50 years and provides a creative forum for exploring frontier issues at the interfaces between science, spirituality, consciousness and well-being. Another group proposes so-called post-materialistic science. You can find them on http://openscience.org. This group believes that the sciences of today would be more scientific if they were free to investigate the natural world in a truly open way, without the constraints of materialism and the prejudice of dogma, while adhering to the scientific methods of data collecting, hypothesis testing, and critical discussion. For those of you who tend to think in terms of race, we are told that not all artists come necessarily on the influence of the fourth ray, the ray of harmony and beauty. Artists come under the influence of all of the 7 rays. The same holds true for the community of scientists. Although the 5th ray is the so-called ray of science, scientists themselves come under the influence of all the come under the influence of all of the 7 rays, thus giving the diversity found in the scientific thinking. In the talk of today, some concepts may be discussed with which you are not necessarily familiar with. This is frequently the case when discussing a treatise on cosmic fire, which often stretches our understanding. Don't worry too much about this. The main purpose of the talk is to highlight some of the connections between esotericism and science or religion, and you can read more extensively any details in the book itself, which you can download for free. We will give you the link later in the chat, and you can also find it in the presentation of Better Stock Power. So, with this introductory thoughts, let us now do our Goodwill meditation together. Stage 1. Link up in thoughts with all those people throughout the world who are working with this Goodwill meditation group. Reflect upon the fact of relationship. We are related to our family, our community, our nation, the world of nations, and the one humanity made up of all races and nations. Then we sound the mantra of unification. The souls of all are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form, and life and all events, and bring to light the love that underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all people love. reflect upon our own and humanity's relationship with all beings who dwell in the higher realms of mind and heart, the spiritual hierarchy of saints, rishis, bodhisattvas, and masters honored by all the world's religions and spiritual groups. Then imagine that we are standing together within the center of the spiritual hierarchy, immersed in the consciousness of the heart of love. For some, this heart of love is known as the Christ. Other faiths have other names for the one at the center, such as Maitreya, the Imam Mahdi, or the Kalki Avatar. Maintaining that high point of contact, let our thoughts reach out to include all members of the human family in whom the energy of goodwill is active. Then we use the affirmation, in the center of all love I stand. From that center I, the soul, will outward move. From that center I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the Divine Self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. Then visualize the energy of love flowing from the hierarchy through the men and women of goodwill and into the hearts and minds of all people, infusing them with goodwill and creating loving and harmonious human relationships. Then meditate on ways of spreading goodwill, creating right human relationships, and restoring peace on earth. Realize that you are helping to build a channel between the spiritual hierarchy and humanity, through which the energy of goodwill may flow, uniting humanity, solving its problems, and healing all cleavages. Linked in thought with men and women of goodwill all over the world, we say the adapted great invocation. We say it with deliberation and full commitment to its meaning, knowing that we are radiating its potent energies to humanity. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills. the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. So now it's a pleasure to invite, oh, my camera got down, sorry for that, to invite Bette for her talk, and for that I should share my screen, and then I should shut up and give the floor to Bette. Bette, you have the floor.
Okay, are we good? Can you hear me?
Yes, Betty, we hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to express my gratitude to Mentz and World Goodwill for giving me this opportunity to talk about the book. I've been a student of esoteric studies for many years and have taken a particular interest in the book, A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. It has numerous passages that seem analogous to scientific concepts, and I have often thought that an open-minded scientist would be able to see similarities between them and current scientific theories. Since I am not a scientist, I undertook a study of what seemed to me relevant topics and have attempted to write the book in a way that would be understandable to a person of average intelligence with an interest in the ideas presented. In this talk, I will briefly touch on the subject matter from several chapters to show examples of its content. The parallels that are drawn between science and esotericism are my own suggestions and are not necessarily indicated in the writings themselves. Electricity and light. If there is one foundational concept that could be said to define both esotericism and science, it would be that of electricity and its constant corollary, light. Helena Blavatsky was fond of referring to the mystery of electricity, and numerous concepts about which both she and the master D.K. wrote can be seen as electrical in nature. Similarly, have the discoveries of the scientists and quantum physicists of the past 2 centuries been woven around ascertaining the nature of the atom and the electromagnetic forces that enable its activities. Before the mid-1700s, electricity and magnetism were thought to be 2 separate forces, but scientists determined through experiment that one can induce the other. They also found that induction only happened if one or the other was changing, thus showing that motion is essential to electrical activity. It was also ascertained that the 2 always operate at right angles or orthogonally to one another. The later work of the quantum physicists expanded the concept even further because their experiments showed that the photon of light is present in every atomic interchange. Electrical interplay, as it demonstrates in esoteric theory, has direct analogy to these descriptions. Fundamental is the idea of polarity. Scientifically, the production of light in our homes and cities is produced by the bringing together of positive and negative electrical charges. When they interact, they can illuminate the filament that makes a light bulb shine. Its extrapolation at the spiritual level can be expressed in the terms spirit, consciousness, and matter. Each created entity has been brought to life because spirit, which represents positive charge, and matter, which represents negative charge, come together. And through their combination, a conscious, light-infused being is brought to life. An intriguing passage from a treatise on cosmic fire could give an esoteric hint about the origin of electricity. It describes the interrelational nature of the seven planes, the seven rays in the solar sphere, stating that their interconnected movements produce both light and fire by friction, which esoterically is electricity. Further, the planes and rays are depicted as each rotating orthogonally in relation to one another, the same as electricity and magnetism. This is the quote: "Every sphere in the body macrocosmic rotates. This rotation produces certain effects, which effects might be enumerated as follows. Separation is produced by rotary movement. By means of this action, all the spheres became differentiated and form, as we know, the following atomic units. A, the solar system, recognized as a cosmic atom. B, the seven planes, regarded as seven vast spheres rotating latitudinally within the solar periphery. And C, the seven rays, themselves spheroidal bands of color rotating longitudinally and forming, in connection with the seven planes, a vast interlacing network. These two sets of spheres, planes, and rays form the totality of the solar system and produce its form spheroidal. Each plane is a vast sphere of matter actuated by latent heat and progressing or rotating in one particular direction. Each ray of light, no matter of what color, is likewise a sphere of matter of the utmost tenuity, rotating in a direction opposite to that of the planes. These rays produce, by their mutual interaction, a radiatory effect upon each other. Thus, by the approximation of the latent heat in matter and the interplay of that heat upon other spheres, that totality is produced, which we call fire by friction. The permanent atoms in DNA. A permanent atom is described as, quote, a tiny center of force which forms the central factor and the attractive agency around which the sheaths of the incarnating monad are built, close quote. As such, it is a basic unit, integral to all aspects of cyclic life. The permanent atoms serve a fourfold purpose. 1, they respond to vibration. 2, they distribute force. 3, they assimilate and transmute experience. 4, they are responsible for the continuity of consciousness. The memory and capacity that is built during the lifetime of an entity is stored within the permanent atoms. Suggestions for a physical plane parallel might have to do with DNA, and the permanent atoms may themselves be repositories for genetic material. If so, then DNA could possibly carry not only information such as coding for physical attributes, but also information about past history. Since the permanent atoms reside in the causal body of the soul, which is eternal for the duration of the human journey, the mechanism of DNA could be its message of storal and transferal between lifetimes. Sound. Sound is one of nature's greatest creative forces and is purported to be the initial summoning call which brought the universe into being. In the occult literature, there is described a vast group of powerful devas which, through a specialized form of inner hearing, respond to intonation and attract matter for the purpose of objectivity in order to produce all the forms of created life. During the ancient era of the Atlantean civilization, many of its human citizens became so adept at summoning these devas that the skills they developed began to be misused, and that civilization entered into an extended period of corruption and widespread greed, which cruelly affected not only the human population, but the devas as well. As a result, the civilization was destroyed, and the knowledge of the use of mantrams became hidden from human comprehension. This may well be the reason that sound has yet to become a great focus of scientific scrutiny in the same way as has light. Following are a few ways in which sound shows up in scientific theory. Baryon acoustic oscillations. An area of research on sound, which may have relation to universal beginnings, can be found in the study of baryon acoustic oscillations. These are described as the still detectable remnants of sound waves that were imposed on the dense matter of space in the early universe. They are thought to have been produced when the intense heat and density of elemental matter caused an outward expansion that produced a wavefront. One of NASA's space programs detects and maps sound waves in order to measure the imprint of acoustic oscillations. Its instruments have indicated a repeating spherical structure that consistently measures 490 light years in radius. This is the line indicated in the illustration. Scientists believe this to be the imprint embedded when light decoupled from matter and atoms began to be formed in the early universe. Extinguishing fire with sound. A quote from TCF states, "The occult importance of the war man wages on the fire devils is very real in connection with the fire department in any city. The time lies far ahead as yet, but it will surely come when their methods will no longer be that of water, or the calling in of the water devas to neutralize the fire devas, but that of incantation, and a knowledge of the sounds that will swing into action, forces that will control the fiery destructive elements." Close quote. In 2015, 2 U.S. engineering students designed a science project based on such a concept, the use of sound to extinguish fire. With $600, they built a portable sound generator with a power source, amplifier, and focusing tube. They found that high frequencies had little effect, but lower frequencies were able to extinguish a small fire in less than a minute. The science involved is based on the principle that pressure waves created by the sound displace the oxygen that fuels fire. The students became instantly famous, and in 2020, they formed a liaison with the company that is building systems to fight large wildfires. Sound in space. Dr. Carolyn Crawford is a professor of astronomy at Gresham's College in Great Britain. She has recorded a series of lectures on space, including one entitled "The Sounds of the Universe," in which she plays a variety of recordings of cosmic space sounds, such as the sun and planets. She writes that, quote, "Sound is an important physical process capable of transferring significant amounts of energy across vast volumes of space. Astronomers have long realized that sound waves are out there and that they play a part in the physical processes going on in space. But it's only over the last 20 years or so that the various roles of sound in space have been recognized and actively pursued in astronomical research." Acoustic levitation. In Letters on Occult Meditation, we read, quote, "The laws that govern the erection of large buildings and the handling of great weights will someday be understood in terms of sound. The cycle returns, and in the days to come will be seen the reappearance of the faculty of the Lemurians and early Atlanteans to raise great masses. They were raised through the ability of the early builders to create a vacuum through sound and to utilize it for their own purpose. Close quote. One account of such skills in recent history is that of a Swedish citizen named Dr. Jarl, who made a journey to a lamasery in Tibet in 1939 to treat the illness of a High Lama. Jarl formed an intimate friendship with the monks, and one day they took him to a tall cliff where they were constructing a rock wall. There he witnessed a demonstration of the levitation of large polished slabs of rock that were raised from a meadow to a cliff 250 meters above. The doctor wrote a detailed account, including sketches, showing the instruments used to levitate the slabs, those being 13 drums and 6 trumpets arranged in a very definite manner in distance from the source. There were also a large number of chanting monks. After 4 minutes of what he described as a terrible din, Dr. Jarl observed the stone block on the ground start to rock and sway and then rise, taking about 3 minutes to land on the platform above. He watched as multiple stone blocks were similarly transported. Although on a far less spectacular scale, acoustic levitation is now an emerging field in science. The methodology is to offset gravity through creating a certain confluence of sound waves. The apparatus used has a transducer that emits sound waves and a reflector that reflects the originating waves back to the source. Because of the interaction of the two oppositely traveling waves, an object introduced into the field is held in suspension between the two nodes. Such devices have been able to suspend and move around small objects, insects, and even mice. Wireless communication. Quote from TCF. It might surprise students and inventors could they but realize that the present rapid growth of wireless communication everywhere is due to the swinging into contact with the human vibration of a group of fiery deva lives hitherto uncontacted. Close quote. It is a surprising statement that underlying the present burgeoning of wireless communication is a group of fiery deva lives. If this be so, then humanity's development along this line may be a powerful indication of a future in which the human and the deva lives will once again meet and cooperate in full mutual knowledge, thus utilizing skills developed in Atlantean times, but hopefully in this era with far more intelligent and beneficent results. The Electric Universe. Quote from TCF. A group of scientists will come into incarnation on the physical plane during the next 75 years who will be the medium for the revelation of the next 3 truths concerning electrical phenomena. Close quote. In the book are 4 chapters with information about the history, theory, and modern practitioners who have formulated a paradigm called the electric universe. These scientists are challenging the currently accepted cosmological theories that are based on accretion, black holes, dark energy, and dark matter. If their theories are proven true, they may compare in significance to theories advanced by some of history's most brilliant thinkers. They base their ideas on an electrical substance known as plasma, which is said to make up over 99.9% of the universe. Plasma is carried through space in vast filaments that can reach thousands of light years in length. The EU scientist believes that the currents running through these filaments are responsible for the creation of celestial bodies. Those currents are called Birkeland currents. I don't think I have that name, but that last slide was a slide of Birkeland currents in space. Those scientists believe that stars and solar systems are created when an instability called a Z-pinch in the current stream causes the formation of a plasmoid, a tangle of electric electrified filaments that produces an exponential increase in current density. When this occurs, the plasmoid is able to consolidate matter around a central point, thus leading to the formation of a celestial object. For the EU scientists, the Z-pinch and the plasmoid it creates are considered essential to explanations of celestial dynamics because they are thought to be the originating points at which the spherical shape of objects in the universe begins to take form. Furthermore, they postulate that the same streams of current that first formed the celestial sphere continue to supply it throughout its lifetime. Sapphire Project. A number of the EU theoretical constructs about the sun have led to a research project called Sapphire, headed by Monty Childs, a design engineer who develops technology for the solar industry. Intrigued by ideas of the EU scientists, Charles entered into lengthy discussions with them and designed a plasma apparatus to test whether electrified plasma could produce the enigmatic features of the solar environment in a laboratory setting. Their most startling outcome occurred when they analyzed the contents of the plasma chamber itself. Astoundingly, they found the existence of 17 new elements which had not been in the chamber before the experiments, 9 of which are elements found in the interstellar medium. This discovery indicates the possibility that the sun is able to create within its own atmosphere the elements needed for its long-term sustenance, a surmisal that agrees with EU theory. Currently, Sapphire is in the process of developing a prototype reactor that can transmute the radioactive elements in fracking wastewater into ones that are benign. They have designed a mobile self-contained unit which is capable of treating 600 barrels per day. Alchemy and transmutation. In past historical ages, some of the world's most prestigious thinkers were alchemists. The recovered writings of Isaac Newton amount to over 1 million words. Although the theory was discredited during the scientific revolution, when discoveries about radioactivity, nuclear fission, and nuclear fusion began to be made, researchers were forced to accept the astonishing fact that the transmutation of the alchemist is a legitimate process of nature itself. In the occult literature, transmutation has a far deeper connotation than it does in science. It has to do with the level of perfection of an evolving unit in relation to the greater life within which it dwells. Every entity has 2 polarities. One, it is positively charged in relation to the lesser lives within its own body of expression, and 2, it is negatively charged in relation to its larger encompassing life. Transmutation occurs when the vibrational level of the lower life becomes so strong that it escapes its own ring-pass knot and enters into that of the larger sphere. Although some of the ancient alchemists were able to ascertain the formulas by which the lower life could be liberated, they failed to comprehend the nature of the enveloping life. Those few who did realize the method to be followed, such as Hermes Trismegistus, also realized the danger of putting their conclusions into writing, and so withheld the results of their work. Science is yet to comprehend this concept. These are a few of the ideas that I found to have interesting parallels, and there are others in the book. For many of the subjects, there are links to relevant videos or articles which have additional information. The book is free and can be accessed on my Substack page, which is in this script. Thank you very much for your attention.
Sorry, I should put on my sound. Thank you so much, Bette, for this excellent presentation. It's really a great pleasure to listen to all this. Of course, I am a scientist, but even for those people who are not Your book is a great resource. It gives links, although it is called Cosmic Fire or a reference to Cosmic Fire. It also gives reference to plenty of other books by Alice Bailey in relation to science and religion, and it is very well readable even for non-scientific people. When I was preparing this presentation, I was discussing with a friend of mine who is also a physicist in the Netherlands, and he noticed that in your book you pay a lot of attention to the current state of affairs, and you give thereby slightly the impression that this is what physics has to offer today. Does it imply that further physical developments are not anticipated by you, or do you think that the physics may have reached or is near to a point beyond which there will be no further proceedings?
You want me to answer that, I assume?
Yes, it's a question
No,
to you.
I do not think that physics has reached its height. I think there are many, many, many things that will come that will surprise us all.
I tend to agree with you. But
Science, like everything else, has its ups and its downs, and so it had, one great surge of energy in the 1700s and then another in the 1900s, and it's going to have another one because a lot of scientists now are are accepting consciousness. That's been the big chasm between science and religion in modern times. They just have refused to accept consciousness, but there's a whole group of them now, Rupert Sheldrake and a lot of scientists, and they're trying to integrate it, like the links that you gave in your talk.
yes,
Those are people who are, I mean, there was one bit of information in there that they gave like $1 million for scientists who could write about the afterlife. And so the scientist who won, Mishloff, you remember Mishloff? He
yes,
won, he produced this long dissertation on near-death experiences and gathered all of the information about what all these different, what there's a University of Virginia has a Department of Perceptual Studies, and they've been working on finding physical evidence of reincarnation. They interview people and then take like children who remember past lives, they go and research the history if that really happened in history. And they've done some great research. So no, I think it's just beginning. And I think awareness of consciousness is going to be probably the next big step, I would think.
yes. I think that in terms of general science and psychology, I agree that that is indeed a great step forward. Also, you mentioned the sapphire. Well, just no one remark on the near death experience and the afterlife. It is absolutely true. There's much research going on, and actually, this is of the last, let's say, 2-3 decades, and there is an enormous amount of progress being made in that direction. I also think, and you mentioned this in your book about the electric universe, that group, even though it is a minority yet, and it doesn't make a big noise in the scientific world, even not a small ripple. Nevertheless, the findings they have and the results they are already finding are really promising, and also there I think there will be a shift coming. Of course, we are all human beings, and we are probably too optimistic, and we want change to happen fast or
I
too
totally
fast.
agree that yeah, the electric universe theories are on a par with the consciousness, people accepting the soul and consciousness and everything, but the EU theories are really dynamic and they're really going to change a lot.
I would agree with you. Are there any, if you want to ask a question, please do so and raise your hand. We will give you happily the floor. And if not, let me see if there's anything in the chat. Okay, no, the manuscript is available. There's one thing. It is a big book. It is 300 pages, and I had the pleasure of reading it in full. And of course, the Cosmic Fire, as I said in my introduction, is not the book people would start with. But you managed in your book to make links, which even if you read the books, and most of us have read at least a couple of books, if not all of the books, which you would not recognize so rapidly. And in your book you managed to bring these links. I see several hands, so I will shut up and give the
I
floor.
want to say one thing and comment to that. I
Yes.
think one key to studying cosmic fire, one thing that makes it difficult is because the information is scattered all over the book, all over that book, and in, numerous other books. And so my personal way to study is that the 24 book CD that the Arcane School has, I study on subject matter. So I will want electricity, then I will go and collect quotes from all the books on electricity. And all of them have a little different spin on it.
Mhm.
I think that's a good way to study this material as a whole, for any subject, really. That's
Sure,
all.
well, sure. For those who have not such a synthetic mind, your book is a quite good resume or a compilation of all these links. Can we, Michael? Can you help give us the floor to Kit Turin? I think she was or he was the first to
Yes,
raise.
hello.
Hello,
Hello.
Kit. You have
Hello.
the floor.
Yes, this is Kit. Um, I had two quick questions. One is very simple. When you repeatedly say EU, are you meaning electric universe or work being done by the European Union?
Oh, yeah.
Or
I thought about that. I thought that I should have had an explanation in
yeah,
it, but I didn't get around. But yes,
uh,
that is EU. I should have explained that.
so the electric universe.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so my other question is, when you were talking about extinguishing fire with sound, and it seems that it was that sound removes the oxygen, I was wondering, what are the implications for life forms that depend on oxygen that are in the area of the fire where this method is being used?
Well, I would think that any life form in the area of the fire would already be so dangerously, attacked that, and the fire itself is using up oxygen.
Right,
So I don't know. That would be my hit on it right off the top of my head. But it's so, I mean, this is the only account I could find of that. And it's just,
right,
this is just a little device and
right.
it's just now starting. So I don't think they've developed anything that will put out fires that are very large.
Right, right. But I think it just seems that often, if certain things can be looked at the beginning or included into the study or development of different technology, looking forward, as they say, to the seventh generation order, that's very helpful. But thank you very much for
Yeah,
your
that's a good
presentation,
point.
Betty.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another hand. Maria Cristina, could you unmute, please?
Unmute.
Yes,
Oh,
there you are.
thank you. Very wonderful presentation. And I think I will just mention, I think the Tibetan writes in that kind of a way where everything is scattered all over for us to look through it as compilation. Beautiful compilation. My question has to do with plasma. If you could expand a little on the definition or the presence of plasma.
Okay, so plasma it's not well known on Earth because it's only like in lightning or neon lights and in the ionosphere. So we don't have much understanding of it, but most of space is made up of it. And what it is, it's it's like the plasma currents that move plasma. It moves matter, and the matter is ionized matter. So you have positive and negative electrons and ions moving through space. And that sets up a totally different dynamic as far as electricity goes, because those currents they act like a big vacuum cleaner going through space, and they can like suck in matter. And that's part of the theory that matter that they are able to suck in and then form into a plasmoid forms the actual body of a celestial object.
And
Now,
there's, you
science
think,
what? Go ahead.
go ahead, it's okay. I'll remember.
Science
I
at this. No, you go.
was just, so if it makes up 99.9% of the universe and it's not present here, we're protected, so to speak, protected or enveloped or whatever from it by our atmosphere. It's just very striking to consider the presence of this plasma.
Well, maybe I can step in a little
Yeah,
bit
thanks.
in this discussion. We are not protected by plasma. We are in the middle of it. If you have lightning on Earth, actually that is a crash into plasma. Plasma has three modes. One is invisible, when there is no or very little electric tension, you don't see it, which is most of the space. When you light it a little bit more, you get what better called neon light. So we do have plasma in our daily life, all kinds of neon lamps and tubes and things like that. That is plasma in an electric mode where it is giving light. And then
And
if it is,
the northern lights
yes,
also. Mhm.
agree. And then when it is really, when we have lightning, then it is, the tension is too high. And that's exactly what we see in the weather. We don't call it like that normally in mainstream science, because mainstream science thinks that space is empty. Whereas the electric universe says no, space is full of this plasma. Plasma is a gas with a little bit of electricity in it. But we don't see, well, it is not giving, most of the plasma in space, the 99%, is not giving light. But some, which better called correctly the Birkeland currents, they do give light, and if they pinch, they give rise to stars and stellar things and that. You find there
Yeah.
are 4 chapters in the book which explains much better than I do in these 2 minutes
And
all
actually,
these
final thing
concepts.
is, so we're in that 1.1% of the universe that is not completely and totally infused with plasma.
Yeah, well, we are matter in a different state. We are solid matter, and we have gas, and that is not plasma.
Christian.
I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And I think
Okay.
another point is that the reason a lot of the scientists, a lot of the electric universe scientists are actually electricians by training. And they have the expertise to recognize electrical signature in things they see in space. And so that is kind of the basis on which they describe, make up, create all of their theories just based on common electrical standards that every
Signatures.
electrician knows. And electrical principles are not that well taught in this other science, in cosmology, in astronomy. So they don't know those principles as well as just a simple electrician. That's all.
Agree. The electricians know much better electricity than the theorists who only know the equations of it. And that's a different
Yeah.
story. We have just one other hand very quickly because we're running a little bit over time. John, can you unmute quickly and make your comment or question?
Thank you. I'm so intrigued by this talk, Betty. It's wonderful. As we move into the Aquarian age under the influence of Uranus, we see the rhythms, the waves that come, especially in terms of learning. Sometimes the knowledge comes quickly and then it's placed away for a while so that humanity doesn't get ahead of itself. Um, at the beginning of your talk, I immediately thought, when you're talking about electricity and magnetism, were once thought to be separate. Albert Einstein was working on what he called unified field theory, trying to put together electromagnetism, gravity, and the two forces at the center of the atom. That one hasn't been resolved yet, but I sense that we're getting closer and closer with each passing day. And my final comment is that the next wave come along. Thank you for your talk. I'm looking forward to reading your book. This is just wonderful.
Thank you. One comment on that is that the electric universe people have an electrically based theory of gravity too. So they're kind of working from that. And, you know, that's your third force that gives you your unified field theory. And so they're working on that also. So
Okay.
thank you for your comment.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to do the last slide, which you see here, which is about the coming events. We will have, as you know, the World Goodwill seminar is on the 2nd of November. In Geneva, we start at 10 o'clock in the morning. In London, we start at 2 p.m. local time, and in New York, we start at 2 p.m. local time too, which means for people in Europe, you can follow all of them. On the other side of the ocean, you would have to get up a little bit earlier, but you could follow all of them. And finally, the next World Goodwill webinar will be Wednesday, 27th of November. I suggest, before we close, that I want to thank Bette very, very much for this very clear presentation, and I hope for all of you, thank you for participating and that you enjoy reading the book. I will just take 1 minute of silence to conclude this webinar. Okay, thank you very much and take care and see you next time.